Hello guys. Okay, so let's continue working on this thing of the modal verbs. I hope you saw the video there on our Google Classroom. Okay, so let's continue. Let me share the screen. Okay, then we were dealing with modal verbs. The first one that we checked, they were modal verbs related to obligations, rules, when you're expressing laws. The one that we are dealing with now, they are phrasal verbs, modal verbs to express logical assumptions. In some books, it is also called as deductions or logical deductions. But well, at the end of the day, well, it is the same, right? So the name is logical assumptions. In some other books, you will find deductions. Yeah. So it is the same at the end of the day, right? But mainly, we have 5 modal verbs which express assumption, or that we can use to express assumption, which are must. This cont is negative. Then we use may. We also have might, and we also have could. We have these 5 modal verbs which express assumptions or logical deductions, whatever you want to call them. If all of them have this function, what's going to be the difference? That's an important thing for us. We divide these 5 modal verbs in 2 groups. One of them, obviously, it being the first, the must and can't. Let's do this one. The first one, the first group, it is what we call strong. I mean that they express a strong assumption, a strong deduction. Whereas the second group, that is may, might, and could, we call them weak, right? Meaning that they express a weak assumption, a weak deduction. So let's tackle them. So these ones, it is what we call strong, right? And these ones, the may, might, and could, it is what we call them weak. Meaning that they, as we said earlier, that this must and can't express a strong assumption, and may, might, and could express a less strong, let's say, weak assumption. What's okay? So if we have for strong, we have must and can't. What's going to be the difference? As we said in the previous video, whenever we use must, it expresses a strong assumption, but for affirmative sentences. Meaning that when we use must for assumption, it means that it is really probable, right? So let's say it is highly, let's write like this one, highly probable, right? For example, imagine that, I don't know, that you see a person on the subway and he's sleeping, no? So you may say, he must be tired. That sentence of he must be tired, it expresses that you think it is what you assume because of the evidence that you have. What evidence in this case? That he's sleeping, right? So we may say he must be tired. Why we say this one? Because he's sleeping. Let me write this one now. Okay, let's use it that one as a complement. He must be tired because he is sleeping. No? So we are not pretty sure if he's sleeping because he's tired. Maybe he's sleeping because he drank a lot yesterday. We don't know, right? So in this case, must expresses that one. It is what you believe happens. And as we said, must is for affirmative and it is high probability. Whereas by using can't, I mean this one, it is also, it is a strong, it expresses a strong assumption, a strong deduction, but in this case, it is for negative sentences, meaning what? That it is highly, in this case, highly improbable, right? So that it is not really probable that that thing happened. Another example would be like, let me do this one. For example, if you say, I don't know, Mary Mary can't, sorry, Mary can't live in Mexico. She called me from England. Or let's say instead of live, let's say be. Mary can't be in Mexico. She called me from England 2 hours ago, let's say. 2 minutes ago, right? To make it more improbable. So what we're expressing in this case, it is what we believe, what we think. It is improbable that Mary is here in Mexico. Why is that? Because my evidence is that she called me 2 minutes ago from England. What we are expressing here is that it is something impossible. It is impossible that Mary is there, because that Mary is here in Mexico, because she called me from England 2 minutes ago. So that's what happens with these two verbs, with these two modal verbs. They express strong assumptions, strong deductions, whatever you want to call them. But the difference is that the first one, it is for affirmative sentences, whereas the second one, it is for negative sentences. And the meaning is totally different. Both are strong, but one is for affirmative, thing like really probable, very probable to happen. Whereas when you use can't, it is almost impossible. You notice that point, that this one is like really probable and can't is like almost or virtually impossible. What happened then with the other three modal verbs, with may, might, and could? They express a weak degree. In reality, in this case, there's no difference in meaning. You may use may, might, or could, and the meaning doesn't affect. In some books, in old books, you will find that it is explained. Sorry, it is explained by giving percentages. They say, oh, if you are 55% sure, you use may. If you are 33% sure, you use might. And if you use, I don't know, 20%, you use could. No, that one in real life doesn't happen, right? Because when you are speaking, you don't say, oh, I am 55% sure. Okay, we'll use this one, not at all, right? So when you want to express a weak probability, a weak assumption, what we use is may, might, and could. In this case, let's do this one, right? That in this case, the three modal verbs, the three of them, express exactly the same, right? So, and what is that? What is the thing that they express? They express something that it is likely, you know, or that, or when we say, for example, perhaps, no, or when we say maybe, so it is a weak probability. For example, perhaps, maybe, likely. When we say, imagine that we have a dialogue, right? And we have here a short dialogue. Say, where is, I don't know, where is Armand? And somebody says, I don't know, he might be at home. What happens in this case? In this very short dialogue, somebody is asking for Armand, and person letter B says, I don't know. He might be at home. In this case, by using might, what this person is expressing is that he's not sure. It is a probability that this person, Armand, is at home. When we express this one as a degree of weak probability, that we are not sure, that's what I mean, that we don't know, we may use any of these three modal verbs with no difference in meaning. So this person may say, he might be at home, or he may say, he may be at home, or he could be at home. The important thing is that in this case, when we express a weak probability, the meaning, it's not different at all. There's no real difference in meaning. The important thing, guys, it comes in this part. No, I mean important because there is an opposite meaning. When we use must, is for affirmative, like almost a fact, almost true. And when we use can't, it is on the other side of the scale. That it is virtually impossible that the action happens, or whatever we are expressing in the sentence. In the second group, that is the weak probability, the weak assumption, or the weak deduction, it expresses that precisely, that thing precisely, that there is a lower degree of probability of what the action expresses. I mean, okay. And then if we say, I know, let's use the previous example. Now let's say, where is Sarah? Okay, so again, this person, letter A, is asking for Sarah, right? And letter B, person letter B says, she must be in her class because it is, I don't know, it is 10 o'clock. So she has classes at 10, right? But then another person says, person C says, she can't be in her class. She went to Acapulco on holidays. She went to Then person letter D says, she may or might or could be, I don't know, sleeping. I have to say at home, sleeping. What happens in this case is that person letter A is asking for this person, for Sarah, right? If you notice, the question is not using a modal verb. The difference in this case is that when we say must, is that I am pretty sure, I am really sure that Sarah is in her class. But on the other hand, person letter C, it is pretty sure that she is not a class, right? She's not in her class. The difference in this case is, as we said, must, it is for the affirmative ones, whereas can't, it is for the negative ones. So let's say that, just to keep in mind that must is almost possible, right? And when we say can't, it is impossible, right? Highly probability that there is no impossible to happen. Now, when we say in the third one, may, might, or could, the only thing that we are doing is expressing a really low degree of probability. What happens in this case, guys, is that we normally interchange some phrases with modal verbs. What do I mean with this one? Mind that we say something like, I don't know, Jesus, let's say, I'm sure that Jesus is in his school right now. What we are expressing here is that, check it, let me highlight. I am sure that. If you notice this phrase, I'm sure that, it is expressing a high degree of probability. So your assumption is if with a strong degree, with a high degree. So when we say, I'm sure that Jesus is in his school right now, what we are using, it is an equivalent of this modal verb, must. Why is that? Okay, because the sentence first is affirmative sentence. So I'm sure that Jesus is in his school is affirmative. And the degree of probability, right? It is highly probable. So this sentence, we can rephrase it by saying, Jesus must be in his school right now. Right now. That's what these modal verbs express. I mean, these 5 modal verbs, different degrees. So I'm sure it is the same as must. You notice that business? That in many cases, you will listen equivalent phrases or equivalent verbs to what these modal verbs express. The business in here is that if you want to improve that use of modal verbs, just pay attention to these little clues. If it is affirmative and it is strong probability, for sure, you go for must, and that is exactly the same thing. Like in this case, I'm sure that, equivalent always as a golden rule to must. because they express an assumption, what you think, what you believe it may happen or happened. Now check what happens in this case. Imagine that I would use the same example, but with a little change. And that I say, I'm sure that Jesus is not in his school, no? Right now. Okay. What's the difference? If it is that in this case we have I'm sure, okay, good. No. But in this case, we have a negative in our sentence. It says not. So in the first one is only I am sure that Jesus is in his school right now. In the second one, it says I'm sure that Jesus is not in his school right now. So we are expressing something probable but negative. You notice? In this case, I cannot use must, because must, it is only for strong but affirmative. And this one is strong but negative. So in this case, what we need, it is instead of must, it is can't, because it is negative. Then I rephrase my sentence by saying Jesus, and then the modal verb, no? Can't be in his school right now. That's what you have to pay attention to. What these modal verbs express. As we said here, no, can't, it is strong probability. I am sure. If I am sure, it is strong. But it says, but it is negative. So you combine them. You have strong probability, but in negative. Go for can't. And therefore it says strong probability. Strong probability affirmative. No problem. Go for must. That's what you have to pay attention to. The meaning, right? What you express, what you want to express in your sentence. Then by changing the modal verb, the meaning changes. The perception, your probability changes. He must be in his school, really probable. He can't be in his school, improbable. He may be in his school, like, okay, maybe yes, maybe no. It is a really weak probability. Okay, so everything depends on the degree of certainty that you express or that you want to express. How can you change that degree of certainty? Changing the modal verb, as we have in this example. She must be, she must be, it is a high degree of probability. She can be a high degree of probability, but negative. And might and could is like a weak degree of probability. That's the only thing that changes. Well, by changing the modal verb, the degree of certainty that you want to express changes for sure. Everything depends on the evidence that you have. Okay, so I suggest you watch the previous video. It is a very short video, like 1-2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. It is a 2-minute video that complements this one. And then I will send you, I think that now I will send you a Google activity, a Google Drive activity. So as for you not to go to another website and then come back and all that stuff, right? Let's see what happens. But remember, if you have any question, no problem. You can send a message to the to our group there in WhatsApp, or if you want to ask in Classroom, I have no problems. Okay, so see you guys.